Well, I'd like to welcome you to the Reed and Christine Halliday Executive Lecture Series. Today's speaker is Mark Patey. Mark was born in Salem, Oregon in 1972. He started life as a high-energy, curious child. In the 5th grade, Mark was diagnosed as having ADHD and put in a special education class with the mentally handicapped and school troublemakers. Yet went on in his life to build multiple successful companies, starting the first at the age of 15 and employing hundreds by the age of 21. Mark is currently the owner of Prodigy Engineering, Blue Step Technologies, 4Care Pharmacies, and Growth Climate Relationship Education and Therapy Centers. Past achievements have included building several other successful businesses, both large and small. He was the host of his own motorsports show on ESPN, and is consistently rated as one of the top presenters and trainers in the country. Most recently, Mark received global recognition for breaking the transcontinental world speed record once held by Howard Hughes. Flying a self-built airplane across the United States, Mark bested the previous record by an astonishing 48 minutes and 11 seconds. Mark enjoys collecting, building, and flying airplanes and donates his time and personal helicopter to the Utah County Search and Rescue. In 2010, the state of Utah awarded Mark with the Citizen Life-Saving Award. Mark is the author of Addicts and Millionaires, The Gift and Curse of ADHD, which is in the UVU bookstore if you'd like to get a copy of that. And he's also the host of the #1 rated podcast on ADHD, Distracted with Mark Patey. Mark has an identical twin, Mike. Of course, Mark is the better looking of the two. And he lives in Spanish Fork with his wife, Susie. They have 4 sons, Paxton, Kaysen, Trevor, and Connor. Let's give a round of applause to our speaker today, Mark Patey.
Well, this is exciting to be here. I look around and I see all the future business owners and leaders, and that for me is the most exciting group to speak to. One, because most of you are youth, and I still consider myself a child and behave like one. You could ask my wife more often than anything else. And because I love business, and I love seeing people try and succeed in business. And I actually love seeing people try and fail and get back up and try again. There's really 4 types of people that I see in the business world that I want to talk about. And you may have heard this before, or at least heard of the first 3. And the important thing is to figure out where you fit in it. The first type of people I see in business really are those that are unconsciously incompetent. Unconscious incompetence is a funny animal because they complain a lot. Whether they're in business or working for somebody, they're always wondering why the other guy's more successful. They're frustrated at the fact that somebody else has a big house on the hill and they don't. In fact, they're angry. And it confuses me. If you listen to them in a day-to-day life, it's never their fault. They're completely incompetent, and they're unaware of their incompetence. It's almost always accompanied with arrogance. The most incompetent among us are usually the most arrogant. The next type of person I see in business and in the business world are those who are consciously incompetent. Now that's tough, by the way. Conscious competence, you can't live there. You can't stay there. It emotionally just tears you apart, right? So you either graduate and move up, or you step back into unconscious incompetence and start blaming everybody else around you for why you haven't achieved what you want to achieve. And I would say most people move out of conscious incompetence and that pain, and they regress to unconscious incompetence more often than they move forward. And if we're going to graduate from conscious incompetence, where we realize I'm not getting it done, and I'm not getting it done right, but it's my fault, and I have something to learn. To graduate from there, you have to accept your own mistakes. You have to accept that you don't know as much as you thought you knew. And you move into the next phase, which is conscious competence. Okay? Conscious competence is difficult. It's not painful, but it's so much work. I'm going to give an analogy of a few of these so that you really understand it, so that you can decide where you fit. And I want you to be careful about where you think you fit. Conscious competence is like when you're learning to drive a car, right? The first time you got in your car with mom or dad and they're teaching you to drive. And it's particularly impactful if it's the first time you're learning to drive a stick, right? You get into the car and you are unconsciously incompetent to begin. And this is an important thing to understand. As we all progress through this, we can get through all phases of competence. And I'll get to the last one at the very end, the fourth one. But we get into the car, and dad or mom says, in my case it was dad, dad says, now listen, what you need to do is push the clutch in, and you'll give a little bit. I said, like, Dad, shut up. I so got this. I've been watching you for years. And dad's like, okay, all right. And I push in the clutch, and I get it, and I put it in first gear, and I'm looking at dad like, uh-huh, I knew where first gear was. That's right. And you give a little gas, you start letting out the clutch, and I'll say, goo, 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 boom, and it stops, right? And it scares you, and the engine stalls, and you're wondering what happened, and the shaking, and now you've moved into conscious incompetence, right? You've graduated from unconsciously incompetent to consciously incompetent. Now, when you're consciously incompetent, if you're willing to stay there, you're teachable. And so dad says, now, listen, Mark, you need to give a little bit more gas, be a little slower on the clutch, you don't hurry this, and you start to go through that process, right? And you graduate to eventually a point where you are consciously competent. And what I mean by that is now you're in your car and you're able to start it, put it in gear, and you're like, okay, a little bit on the gas. You're now on the road on your own. You're out into traffic, like a little gas, clutch, okay, speeding up, going through the gears, look in the mirror, am I clear? I'm clear, okay, blinker, moving over, and you're thinking about everything. You're slowing down, getting on the brake, the car starts to jerk, and bam, clutch, just in time. And it didn't stall it. Whew. There's girls looking, and they're in the back. And now you're consciously competent. But it's like, it's so much mental effort, right? That first while. I remember that recently, well, everything was so recently for me. I think I'm so much younger than I am. 17, 18 years ago, I got my pilot's license, and you really go through with that learning to fly an airplane. You think you're so much better than you are until you get more and more experience, and you realize that you don't know how you survived the first 20 hours of flight, right? Well, here's the interesting thing. You get to that conscious competence, you're working your guts out, and it's true in business too. You see people grinding. They're worn out at the end of the day. They come home and they just need to sleep and pass out. Because have you ever noticed mental work is far more exhausting than physical? Have you guys noticed that? I would much rather dig a ditch than go sit down and put this thing to work, because this wears me out. Digging a ditch, at least at the end of the day, I go, look what I did. That ditch right there, I did that. All this stuff, at the end of the day, you're going, did I get anything done? Well, eventually you move out of conscious competence, where you're competent because you're thinking about every step, to the final last phase, and this is the most important. And this is what you see in successful business people. You move to unconsciously competent. And we've all graduated there. All of us are now capable and unconsciously competent when it comes to driving. Maybe not all of us. There might be a few in the room. Nobody look at your neighbor. Where we get in the car, we turn it on, we start it up, we drive down the road, and we're shifting gears, and we're merging, and we're getting on the highway, and we're on our cell phone, and we got coffee in our lap, and, okay, maybe don't do that, right? Texting, all without a thought. How many of you have autopilot all the way to school or work without one conscious effort about one phase of that drive? Everyone. And so now you're consciously competent in one particular area. The challenge I see, unconsciously competent. The challenge I see for so many people is that they get unconsciously competent in a certain area or in a certain business, and then they get arrogant. And they think they're all that. I've got several friends or people I know really well that I've seen sell their businesses for millions. One sold this company for over $100 million. and went out and, I mean, he worked. He was unconsciously incompetent, consciously competent, then moved to unconsciously competent in that field, in that arena. He did everything right. It was innate. It was who he was. And then he made all his money. And now he just knows it, right? And then he'd step into something slightly different and lost 10 million bucks. Well, that was a fluke. And he invested in something else that was a little bit different and lost all his money. It only took 4 years to lose over $100 million because he didn't recognize that in a different area of his life, even though it was still business, he was completely, unconsciously incompetent and not willing to move into the painful realization of conscious incompetence, where you can learn and be taught and progress. I want to do a little exercise, but I was waiting for something to show up, but maybe she's not here yet. We'll do it in a second. I'm going to ask for 3 volunteers before too long, and we're going to put you up on the stage, and we're going to play a little game called Where's the Money? I want to talk about one other thing that, as we wait for them to show up, that's been really struck me lately. I have a friend that has he's a good friend of mine. Over the years, he's done a lot of different businesses. I've never seen him do less than $10 million on any business, ever. He's the $10 million man over and over and over and over. And he has a phrase that I want you to, if you're going to make a note, this is one you write down and apply it to absolutely every part of your life. It's, you can't get there from here. You can't get there from here. And what he's referring to is people that want to talk about the things that they should have done or could have done, or the people around them that screwed things up, that waste all the time in the board meeting or conference meetings or in planning meetings when you're trying to move forward. And he'll stop a board meeting with serious powerhouses, and he'll just stop. I've seen him in a board meeting with seriously powerful, wealthy people around the room with egos as big as life who are talking about the things that have happened, and he'll just stand up and go, guys, shut up. You can't get there from here. The only thing we can get to from here is tomorrow and the next day and what's happening later today. Yesterday, we can't get there. Oh, thank you. There it is. How many of you have been caught thinking about what could have happened or should have happened or somebody else could have done yesterday? All of you. Guess what, guys? Yesterday, we can't get there from here. If you're going to put that in a more important part of your life, I look at it from I'm a religious person. I'm not shy to say that. And sometimes I think that my Savior would be like this business friend of mine, where he's going to go, look, stop worrying about what happened. Stop worrying about what you did. You can't get there from here. You can't fix that. Where are you going tomorrow? And that's all that matters, right? We'll do a little exercise. 3 volunteers. I promise it'll be worth it. Volunteers quick. 1, come up here. 2, come up here. 3, come up here. Okay. Now you guys are you're going to start to say, this Mark Patey guy, what in the world is he doing? He brought a little black bag with handcuffs. Insert joke here, but keep it to yourself. And then there's something else in here. It gets better, a blindfold. And then, most importantly, some cash. Yeah, blindfold, handcuffs, and cash. I want all of you to sit down for just a second. And I want one of you to put on a blindfold. Don't assume because he picked the blindfold, he doesn't get the cash, right? One of you, we're going to do some handcuffs. I got to get the keys. Yeah, you're going to put it on. No cheating. I don't want you to. What's that? You'll take the handcuffs? Seriously? Is your girlfriend here? No. He says, I'm used to them. Okay. I want you to put that on one of your hands and put the other one right here on the chair. Okay? And the black bag, well, that has the keys to the handcuffs. Okay, now in life, and I use this example, I use cash as an exercise because it's a measure of success, right? It's not the only measure of success, and it's certainly not the most important. I'd argue it's the least important, but I certainly do like it, right? But I've got some cash here. We're going to play a game called Where's the Money? Now, when we're talking about the 4 types of people we talked about previously, where's the money with those 4 people? If we're using that as a measurement of success, where is it? The 4th person, who was? Unconsciously competent, right? The unconsciously incompetent looks at that guy and goes, he's not that smart. What the heck's he got that I don't got? Take his money from him and give it to me, right? Okay, so I've got some 10s here and some 5s, and honestly, it's mostly 1s. It's only $100, but it's enough to make this exercise. So we're going to play a game called Where's the Money? Sorry, buddy with the blindfold, there's money up here. There's money sitting up on a guy's leg up here. There's some more money sitting on that guy's notebook. There's money here. Okay, you guys that aren't blindfolded, you can see all this, right? Okay. And up here. Okay, so there's $100. There's only one rule to this game. Okay? The only rule to this game is when I say go, first person to grab the cash gets to keep it. Go.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Who has it? CEO?
Oh, careful.
Okay, go back to the
Oh, there we go. Nice, nice. Is that all of it? Okay, come on back. Come on back up on the stage. Sit down. Okay, you can take off your blindfold. Okay, so we talked about how many types of people? 4. I have 3 of them represented here, right? We have those that can't even see the opportunities in front of them, right? And they'll find some success in life. He got something, right? They can't even see the opportunities in front of them. Now, was this a fair game? I don't know. I'm going to let you think about that for a second. Now, we had somebody who saw opportunities, was a little handcuffed, right? Now, was there a rule? You ended up by far with the most cash, I think. You should have. Well, maybe you did. That's a pretty good fistful. So between the 2 of you. Now, was there a rule that said he couldn't drag his chair? What was the only rule? First one to get the cash gets to keep it, right? That was the rule. Was there a rule that you couldn't take off your blindfold? Ah! What? Okay, and then of course you just went out there and got you some lunch money. Oh, yeah. Okay, but I talked about 4 types of people. Anybody figured this out yet? What was the only rule? What? First one to get the cash gets to keep it. Who was the money closest to? You! This guy had it on his lap. So did that guy. And I think they were both at least $10 bills, right? And now you're that guy going suddenly from unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence. I don't know what it is, guys, but this is the biggest fear I have for this upcoming generation. Is that somehow society has taught us that unless we're invited to participate, we can't. Somehow we think unless we got an education in it, which you should and it's good, right? That's what we're here for. But unless you got specifically educated in this particular thing, you can't do that job. Somehow we think unless we were invited to work for somebody, we can't have that job. I started my business at 15 years old. I walked up into the Salt Lake offices, city offices, and asked for a business license. And at 15 years old, by the way, guys, you did great. Thank you very much. You can take your seats. What? You're in the, how much cash have you got? No. That's just me creating my own opportunities. There's no lock, buddy. They just open. Okay, give them a round of applause. I went into the Salt Lake business offices at 15 years old. I was still the stereotypical twin. I was a runt. I was probably 80 pounds. Looked 11 or 12. So picture me at 15, looking like a Cub Scout, looking over this counter in Salt Lake, because my dad drove me there, because if I was going to start a company, I needed to have a business license, saying, "Can I have a business license, please?" And these ladies looking at me going, "For what?" I said, "I'm starting a company." What do you mean you're starting a company? Aren't you too young? I said, "Is there a law that says I have to be a certain age to start a company?" And she goes, I don't know. And she looks at the other, "Is there a law that you have to, is there an age on starting a company or having a business license?" And the other lady's saying, "What?" I don't know. Because we as a society assume somehow there must be a restriction because nobody's done it. Somehow, unless invited or given specific permission or encouraged or told what to do, don't do it. It's ridiculous. Participate. Always. Assume it's for you. Assume the opportunity is yours to take, because it is. I got a business license because they just couldn't come up with a reason not to give me one. I had to debate a little bit. They finally said, fine. They gave it to me. Now, admittedly, back then it was a lot different than it is today. It was one-sided. I filled it out and paid my $10 and turned it in. Regulations have changed a lot. But it doesn't mean you can't participate. It's gotten a little tougher. Don't let that be an excuse. That's for those unconsciously incompetent that want to blame over-regulation on their downfall. Is it a challenge? Yes. Are we handcuffed in life sometimes? Yes. Absolutely. But participate. My first business was a construction company building redwood decks. And we went out every day after school for weeks. I'd get off a school bus, and I would take my twin brother and I, and all our friends are saying, "We're going to go ride our dirt bikes on the track out in the farmer's orchard." And we're like, "Oh, no, we got to go to work." You guys have been like trying to do your company for weeks. Have you got any jobs? We're like, "No, but we're okay." Now, I came from a poor family. When we started selling ourselves as someone who could build a custom deck on the back of people's houses, and we were uniquely qualified, right? Because we did one on our parents' house for the wedding. So that made us qualified. We didn't have any money at all, and we thought, well, if we get someone to let us build the deck, we'll figure out how to get tools, because we didn't have any. We borrowed tools to build my dad's deck. We finally got a guy that knew my family and said, "Aren't you the Patey twins?" We're like, "Yeah." "You guys know how to build the deck?" We're like, "Yes, we've done one." "You've done one. And you want to attach it to the back of my house?" We said, "Yes, we're going to do a great job." And he believed in us. And so we started, getting a lumber list together. We said, "Okay, we need tools. We don't have any money." So we went to our neighbors and said, "You know those tools you loaned us when my dad and us were building the deck? Can we lease those?" And he's looking at us like, "What do you mean?" We said, "Well, we'll pay you $10 per deck we build with your drill, and $10 per deck that we build with your skill saw, and we've got our own hammers because we saved up our money and bought them." That's how we started. You know how many people come to me, and it breaks my heart. I do investments from time to time. I don't know why, just because I love to lose my money. But from time to time, I'll give investments. But it just kills me when I see people come to me and they've got this great business plan and they're saying, "All we need is your money." And I'm going, "Well, no, you don't." I'm thinking to myself, there's so much work you can do without money. But somehow they think that unless they have the money, they can't even get started to work. And I'm like thinking, I went door to door for 3 weeks every day after school trying to tell people I was going to build them a deck, and I didn't have a drill or a saw. I got to work. The other thing we learned and that I want everyone to learn is that once you do get a business idea, don't think it has to be great. How many people, I do some consulting from time to time. I have a podcast on ADHD called Distracted that's been really popular, so I get a lot of emails and questions, and my Distracted podcast seems to almost be as much about business and entrepreneurialism as it is about ADHD. And I get a lot of questions in, and it's amazing to me how many people write in and say they're just looking for what might be a good idea, or what trends and what ideas do I think are out there that they should pursue. And I'm like, who said you had to have a brilliant idea to start your company? You don't have to come up with the new app nobody thought of. It's nice. There's some great money there, right? You don't have to come up with an invention. That's nice too. If you want to learn about business and finding success in the world, start a company, any company. I don't care if it's window washing. I don't care if it's building decks. I started building decks. Nothing glorious or sexy about that. We just happened to be really good at it. When we got our first customers, the next lesson was this first customer was this guy that knew the family, and he mattered so much because it took 3 weeks to get him, right? He was everything. That was our company, and it was started. And so we worked so hard to make him happy. And as we were getting near the end, we started realizing we don't have another job. And we're asking him, do you know people? Do you know people? He said, oh, think about it, you know. And we're going, once we finish the job, we start going out and knocking door to door, and we're having the same problem again. 2 Cub Scouts show up on the door saying, hey, our company's called Deck It, and we're going to build a deck on your house. And they're going, well, where's your dad? Right? And so we went back to the original customer a week later and said, hey, we know it's been a week since your deck was done. We're here with a drill and some screws. We want to make sure no board's pulled up. And they'd say, wow, that's great. I don't know. And we'd go out there, and if there wasn't even a board that needed to be put in, we're like, we know what, we're going to pull that screw out. We're going to straighten it. It's not in a perfect line. And we're going to do this, and we fixed it. Another week later, we still didn't have any other jobs, and so we said, we got all this scrap wood from his deck. Let's make some planter boxes. So we made some planter boxes. We went back to his house. We said, hey, it's our 2-week anniversary since we finished building your deck. We brought you some free planter boxes. And this one's for this spot, and this one's for this spot, and this one's for that spot. And wish we could give you some free plants, but we figured you could take care of that. Do you have any referrals? And he goes, you guys are unbelievable. Hold on. And he got on the phone and started calling friends right on the spot. And suddenly we realized, holy cow, there's something to this doing stuff nobody expected. He never expected us to show up. How many of you have worked with contractors? When they're done, how many of you expect them to show up in a week and ask you how things are doing? And if there's anything they can clean up, touch up? None of us. How many of us expect them to show up 2 weeks later and say, here's something free because it's a 2-week anniversary of the job? Now, we weren't smart. We didn't learn this. We were just dumb young kids that had our one favorite customer and the only person we had to take care of. But we learned a valuable lesson. This is another thing to write down. It's called the 2% that counts. The 2% that counts. Everybody has expectations, right? We all have an expectation, whether it's the person we're married to or the person we're doing business with, or the people that have invested in us, whatever it is, we have expectations. Our customers have expectations of us. And in life, somehow, there is another disease in human nature to do what's expected of us and nothing more. In America, there's a lot of credit card debt, right? And if someone's got a $20,000 credit, balance on their credit card, and let's say their payment's $287 minimum payment, if they make that minimum payment every month, how long until they pay off that credit card? 15 years, 20 if it's a higher interest rate, to make the minimum payment, right? But if they upped it by $50 a month instead of 15 to 20 years, it's more like 3 to 5. So, but here's the interesting thing. This disease of doing what's expected and nothing more is so prevalent that even though that's so blatantly, ridiculously, painfully obvious throwaway of money, 90+% of Americans make the minimum payment and still go to a movie and still go out to eat because that's all that was expected of them. Here's what we learned in business. Once you meet their expectations, anything after that, that 2% extra is the only thing that matters. I'm not talking about simply going the extra mile, because going the extra mile a lot of times is determined by you. Well, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to go a little bit extra, and I'm going to do a little bit more. The 2% that counts is meeting their expectations. What was your customer expecting of you? Get it all done. Ask them if it's done. Ask them if they're happy. Are we good? We're good. Am I getting a final payment? Got a final payment. Thank you. You guys are awesome. Will you refer us? We'll refer you. Great. All expectations met. And in business, just like in a credit card or in your personal life, once you met all expectations, you broke even. You broke even. You're getting nowhere, absolutely nowhere in your business and nowhere in your personal life. Meeting every expectation is a net gain zip. But 2% extra. You know how much work and money and blood, sweat, and tears on that first deck to make that customer happy? And we got it all done, and we didn't get one single referral. 2 weeks later, we had 3 more jobs lined up. Because the 2% after expectations were met is the only thing that mattered. We took that lesson and applied it with every single customer. And customers that demanded too much, that made us mad, they'd say, oh my gosh, they're asking us now to put a free cement pad at the bottom of the stairs. And now they're wanting the upgraded 6x6 posts on the handrail instead of the 4x4. And God, you just want to, you'd get, where now you've spent $800 or $1,000 more making this customer happy, and you didn't make a dang red cent on that customer, and you just want to walk away from them, we'd say, okay, we finally did everything. And they expected that. And they knew dang well this was the contract, and they screwed us, and we met that expectation. We would dig down and go, okay, now we have to do the 2% that counts. Otherwise, it was a net gain 0. And guess what? Even an a-hole will give you a good lead. Don't let it be for nothing. We went on from there and started upselling. You know, our company got a lot bigger because we realized everybody we built a deck for certainly would need a hot tub. We became the largest volume hot tub dealer, and this is fun to be here in Utah speaking, but we were the largest volume hot tub dealer in the state of Utah before we opened our first retail store. Then we opened a store, and we opened some more stores, and then we realized, wow, there's money in these hot tubs. So we bought a factory that was going out of business in Colorado and started making hot tubs and selling them to Sam's Club. And from there, we went on and did 7 or 8 other companies, and I'd say 7 of them were very successful. But it's the principles that you learn. And if there's anything from today's lesson, the main things you want to go home with today is, 1, when you're talking about the 4 types of people, recognize and accept, as I have to force myself to do, that I am completely and totally unconsciously incompetent. I know I'm incompetent. I know I'm so incompetent, I'm not even aware of how incompetent I am. I tell people, our HR department, I tell them, look, there's a main requirement if they're going to work for us or work for my company. The one and only requirement is they have to be smarter than me. That's it, and that's not very hard. They have to be smarter than me in the area we're hiring them in. I'm not like you guys. I didn't go to college. I tried for a little bit. I struggled with it. I didn't make it, right? That put me at a disadvantage. But I knew how to work really, really hard, which gave me an advantage. And I knew that I wasn't real smart, which gave me an even bigger advantage, right? And I also knew that I can hire people way smarter than me for a lot less money and time than what it might have taken me to go get the education in that area. Because guess what? You can't be an expert in absolutely everything. But you absolutely can hire an expert in absolutely anything, if you're willing. If you're thinking about starting your own business, another thing I want to give you just as an advantage to help you. You don't have to be, and don't think you have to be, the smartest guy in the room. You just have to be the one willing to take the risk. There will and always will be people who will never step up and lead. I hope that's none of you, because right now we don't have enough leaders. We've got a lot of people that think unless they're invited to participate in life, they won't participate, and they're going to school so that they can get a good job. I actually hear this from people. Yeah, I got to go to school so I can get a good job, and I'm going, ugh! How about go to school to get a freaking education? That's a much better idea. Go to school so you can get an education. Go to school so you can network with people you might want to hire because they're smarter than you. And they're not willing to take the risks you are. I get passionate. Man. I worry. I worry about the future of this country because I see a disease, a mental disorder. I have to admit I'm a big fan of zombie movies. And I was a fan of zombie movies before it was cool, so it's okay to admit. I'm dying for the next seasons to start so I can see the zombie apocalypse roll through and see how Rick does. Okay, you're all with me then. There's a mental disorder that's just like the zombie apocalypse that I see growing in America. And zombies are funny creatures, right? Zombies don't really have a brain. They wander around and they feed on the flesh of the living. Now, zombies can't feed on the flesh of zombies. Have you noticed that? Zombies can only eat fresh meat. They don't eat each other. But they band together to go kill their fresh meat and eat it. And their brains don't work. All they do is need to eat and consume, and they will kill anything that will feed them. That's my fear for America. The zombie apocalypse is a disease in the brain that I call the entitlement disorder. We are living the zombie apocalypse. The entitlement disorder is this disease that clouds all and any rational thought. That it's okay for you to feed off of that person. It's okay for you to not produce if that person's producing and you can eat their flesh. The entitlement disorder is, I had a guy that worked for me once that asked for a raise and asked for a raise, and I couldn't give it to him because he was lazy, right? And he'd say, well, I got this degree. He came to me once and he had finished college, and I thought that was great. And he says, okay, I finished college. I want a raise. Okay. What more are you going to do in your current role? Or are you wanting another role, or what are you wanting to do? And he says, no, I've got a degree now, so I deserve a raise. So you don't deserve anything. You earn a raise by performance. You're not entitled to it because of an education. The education's there to teach you how to work, not grant you something. That's the entitlement disorder. That's the zombie apocalypse. I go to Detroit every year. I have a business that's in the automotive industry. I go to Detroit every year. That whole city's gone. Walk up and down the streets. It is the zombie apocalypse entirely. Buildings are falling down. They don't even have the money anymore in that city to knock over the buildings that are unsafe to be in. Everybody's left. You know what people that know how to work hard do? When they see a lot of zombies around wanting to feed off their flesh, you know what they do? They leave. They go somewhere else. Sadly, I have a little brother that's really smart, brilliant person, employed a lot of people. He left our country. because he could go somewhere else where he was celebrated for his success and celebrated for hiring people. Here's a test, right? And then I'll get off this and we'll have a few minutes for question answer. Any of you who have a cell phone that was given to you by your parents or paid for by your parents that haven't thanked them regularly or told them, as soon as I can, I'm going to make that monthly payment for you. If you haven't done that, you already have the entitlement disorder. See, it's okay to help people, and it's okay to accept help when you need help. And it needs to be done. That's part of our social contract, right? Is to help and lift each other up. But as soon as you're one taking from somebody else and aren't grateful, you're infected. You have a disease. And there is no way you will ever be successful. It's impossible. This one guy I told you about that wanted the pay raise, I couldn't give it to him. He finally came back to me and said, okay, I've got a game plan. I am going to, now when I show up to work, I'm going to do this and this and this and this as well as what I've been doing. And I said, wow, all that? He says, yep. I said, how many extra hours are you going to work? None. I'm going to get all this done while I'm here. And I thought to myself, then what have you been doing? If you have that much free, I'm thinking, do I need to cut your pay? But he was getting paid for what he was producing. He says, if you'll raise my rate to this much, then I will accomplish all these extra things. I said, I have a better idea, because I love everything on your list. It's legitimately great stuff. This is awesome. You do those things, and I'll give you a raise. Well, if you're not going to pay me the extra, why would I do it? I said, if you're not doing it, why would I pay you? I said, you've got the order wrong. Earn it first, and then you get the reward. Earn it first. This comes all the way back to people that come to me with business plans and say, invest in this. And I'm going, what have you got done so far? We've got an awesome business plan. You know, we've made some phone calls, we've done some things, we've a little planning, a little programming. And I'm going, earn it. Earn it. If it's a great idea and you've been working your guts out, I'll invest. I'll invest in anybody that knows how to work. If I get for 1 second the idea that someone has the entitlement disorder and they're part of that flesh-eating zombie apocalypse, there's no way I'm giving them $1. I'm kicking them out of their office with a nice smile and good luck, boys. I don't like losing money. I don't. I think that's good. I want to keep 5 minutes for questions. Don't be part of the zombie apocalypse, by the way. Every one of you, call your parents and say, thanks for the car, or thanks for the phone, or thanks for helping with my college tuition. I love you and I appreciate you. And I have to tell you that because I don't want to have that disease in my brain that says I'm entitled to it just because I was born your child. Okay, questions? That was so good, there aren't any. Yes, please.
I noticed it's on Stitcher.
What's that?
It's not on Stitcher, your podcast. How can we get on Stitcher?
On Stitcher? You know, I'm not hip enough to even know what Stitcher is. So the question was, how do we get the podcast? It's not on Stitcher. I don't know. Find any podcast player. There's easily 50 of them. And then get on that player and search Mark Patey or search Distracted with Mark Patey. You'll find it. Okay, other questions? Yes?
How did you get into automotive?
That's a longer story than I have time for, but my brother and I were fortunate enough to have the right kind of reputation when a company needed some things to get done in a real big hurry. And they came to us and said, we have a project that needs to be done in time for the Detroit Auto Show, some electric vehicles that need to get done. And someone said, if you'd need a miracle, you know, go to the Patey brothers. And I don't know that that they were real smart to recommend that, but fortunately, they believed in us. We pulled off their miracle, and instantly we had a great reputation for being able to engineer and build things in short order that actually worked. Because our vehicles were in the Detroit Auto Show working. Yes?
Engineering has quite a bit of like cutting edge technologies. Is that, did you have to be like learned in that?
Okay, so Prodigy Engineering is a great example. That was the company. My brother Mike and I are what most people would call shade tree engineers, right? Garage mechanic engineers. Usually that's said as a pejorative for those who don't have an education, right? About people like us that don't have an education. Oh, he's a shade tree engineer. Well, the reality is, when I'm excited about something, I dig in and learn. If I don't know, I'll buy the book, I'll read it, I'll consume it. There is this problem where somehow people get the idea that if your education didn't come from an institutional education, it's not valid. But the reality is, whether you learned 1 plus 1 equals 2 in a classroom, or 1 plus 1 equals 2 on YouTube, or from reading a book, 1 plus 1 is still 2, right? Well, we were engineers. We were building and racing airplanes and building and racing cars and having success there and doing some cutting edge stuff. And that's why they approached us and said, could you help us with this? And we said yes, and we hired like 50 people to accomplish the project, and instantly a successful company was born. And that's Prodigy Engineering. It's been very successful for us. In fact, I just recently sold it, so I'm not there anymore. Yes, up here.
I come from an entrepreneur family. My dad built this company when he was about 18. How do you change the direction of a company? Like take it from one field and move it to another.
Okay, so
Try to sell it and start anew.
okay, so the question was, he comes from an entrepreneurial family, and how do you take a company and change the direction of it, or take it from one field to another? Do you sell it or you start anew? Your question, there's no way I could answer now. I don't have enough information to answer your question specifically, but I can say in general, when I'm looking at a company and I'm wanting to turn it around or do something with it, I am looking first and foremost for anyone in the company that has the entitlement disorder, and I can them. For their own good. It's not because I'm a big, evil, greedy capitalist, but if somebody is expecting something without putting in an effort, get rid of them so they can learn to get to work and actually do themselves and their family and everybody else. So first thing I do is look for the entitlement disorder. And if it goes all the way to the top, I'll sell the company if I can, but usually it's not a company that you can sell, right? Because if the entitlement disorder, if that disease has infected the company, sometimes it's easier to close it down. But that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the entitlement disorder. I'm looking, do people in here know how to work and they just need a new direction? Or these people have a disease and they're Detroit on a mini scale, right? That you just need to say, get rid of it and get people that know how to work. I mean, if I had to pick, brilliant person that's a little bit lazy or works their tail off but not very smart, I'll take works their tail off. Every single time. Okay, other questions? One last question. Okay, up here in the middle.
So when you built that guy's deck and you decided to do the extra 2% building the plant boxes, how did you know what to do for the 2%? How did you know that the guy would like the plant boxes out of all the things you did there?
Okay, that's a great question, and I can finish that with a story. So his question was, when we built the deck and we went back, how did we know that he would want plant boxes or want the 2%, that he would like it and it would work? The reality is we didn't. We didn't know. But the 2% that counts is so powerful that if you've met their expectations, right? That's the point that matters. Sorry, I'm trying to dodge light so I can see you. If you've met their expectations, it doesn't matter what it is. So one last story on the 2% that counts, and this is a good way to finish off our time today and go have lunch. My twin brother Mike, he's been very successful, and for a while he was into big race boats, and about every year he'd go buy a boat, and he'd go through that painful process of dealing with salespeople and picking up a boat. Well, he went out, and at the time, this was probably almost 20 years ago, he went into a dealership and spent, at that time would have been a lot of money on a boat, like 120 grand, right? And it was this big, massive Baja twin engine, twin supercharged, go fast boat, right? And I didn't get a phone call, right? And Mike and I, we're identical twins, right? We talk about everything. And he didn't even call me. Spending that much money on a boat didn't even matter. It's like, oh yeah, it's time for a new boat. There's a new, faster one. I'm going to order it, get it in, and then we're going to go to the boat lake and have fun. He didn't call me. When he called me, was like 2 weeks after the fact. I get a phone call. He says, Mark, guess what? I'm like, what? He says, we got to go for big gulps. I got to show you something awesome. And I said, really? What is it? What is it? He says, no, this is big gulp worthy. We're going to get big gulps. And that's what us twins do, right? Even if we're not thirsty, I just finished a 64-ouncer. Big gulp time is about the drive to get the drink and sit and sip big gulps. And so it was big gulp time. Like, this is big gulp worthy. We're going to stop everything and meet up and go to the gas station. This is huge. And he says, and I get in his truck, and he says, check this out. And he pulls up a T-shirt. And it's so redneck, stupid, but it's cool in its own way. It was a picture of a Baja boat, and it's crashing through a wave. This big, huge, long boat, and the water's spraying out. It's full color. You know what I mean, redneck T-shirt, right? Full color, water's splitting, shooting off into the air. The boat's halfway up in the air. There's two motors, and the water's coming off the back of the propellers as it's launching. And it says, Baja boats, the water must be punished. And I'm like, cool T-shirt. He says, I know, it's awesome. They sent me two. Here's one for you. I'm like, who sent you a T-shirt? He says, oh, yeah, the guys I bought the Baja boat from. I said, you got a boat? He didn't call me over a $120,000 new Baja boat, but a $2 freaking T-shirt was worth a big gulp run because he didn't expect it. It was the 2% after all his expectations were met. And I know Mike. I know he beat him up on price and then wanted probably free wakeboards and free tower and free radio and a porta potty to stick under the seat. He would have beat them to death and been like, oh, yeah, I got the new boat. It's going to be fun. But they sent him T-shirts he didn't expect. The 2% after all expectations are met. Know their expectations, meet it, give it a little time, take a breath, and go a little bit farther. Thank you very much, guys. You've been fantastic.